Welcome to Inside Out for empowering conversations that go beyond the rhetoric, looking instead at the issues and the human being behind the headlines. He's been named one of America's 25 most generous young Americans, an empowerment leader for the underserved, and a community hero. John Hope Bryant went from being a homeless 18-year-old to one of the wealthiest men in the U.S. His passion for community upliftment has made him one of the most recognizable social entrepreneurs. He was recently in South Africa on the invitation of the Nelson Mandela Foundation to participate in the Promise of Leadership dialogue held in Johannesburg. What's your sentiment being here?
Paying a debt. I promote financial literacy. I promote civil rights, from civil rights to civil rights. We'll talk about what that means a little later. Most people see that as an economic equation. It deals with economics for sure. But when I say paying a debt, Nelson Mandela made an investment into future generations with his body, with his mind, with his soul, with his wisdom. He made an investment. He paid a price, and he said, basically, the only thing I want in return is for you to fulfill the promise. Do the work. Let's not spoil this opportunity. And on the way there, let's not focus on what Joe did wrong, but what you're going to do right. So let's not be experts in what we are against. Let's be experts in what we're for. And my mentor, my personal role model and hero, is Andrew Young, who is Dr. King's right arm in the civil rights movement. So I have a particular kinship, and all of my role models tend to be, and friends tend to be in the, oddly enough, in sort of the 70 to 80, year old sort of range. And Quincy Jones is a role model, Andrew Young is a role model, and so Desmond Tutu I just met and got to know recently, and so I feel that my life has been blessed in part because these men and women blazed a path and a trail that the cameraman, we're running down that trail. But a dirt path turned into a gravel path, that turned into a expressway, that turned into a freeway, and we take it for granted, But it's not to be taken for granted. And so the least I could do is to get on a plane and travel 32 hours with a layover.
And be part of that dialogue.
To be part of this dialogue. The least I can do is to do that. This portion of time out of my life is a small fraction in comparison to what he did for all of us.
Let's go back to the early days. Just in a minute or so. Give us a sense of what it was like for you growing up.
When you said that, the first image that hit me was a purple suit. My mother did not have a self-esteem problem. My mother is a beautiful lady, but she used to put me in these little Lord Fauntleroy purple crushed velvet three-piece suits when I was 8 years of age, and she'd send me to school dressed like this in the Soweto of Los Angeles, South Central in Compton, California, and I got beat up every day. And
you certainly drew attention.
Yeah, and people thought I had money, and she made these suits, which made it worse, but loss and challenges either reveal your character or build your character, right? And so this revealed my character. And I start dressing in a suit. I start seeing suits everywhere. People in business, businessmen on television, and my teachers, and I start seeing my dad wearing a suit on Sunday morning. I want to be a businessman. And that's where it all started. So I start thinking differently, dressing differently, then walking differently, then talking differently, then thinking differently, and then acting differently. So growing up, I was always of my people, but I was broke, but I wasn't poor. And I've learned that there's a big difference between being broke and being poor.
What's that difference?
Well, to be broke is economic. If you take any risks in life, you've been there before, you'll be there again. But to be poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. And so dignity is the real wealth. Huh?
Did you get this from your parents?
Certainly they were great role models. My dad was a businessman, is a businessman, He also was financially illiterate, so he made money but couldn't keep it. So that's part of why I'm so passionate about wealth building and financial literacy. My mom and dad divorced over money. So they loved each other, but they couldn't get along because and that's what most people divorce over in the world, is money. And so on the one hand, yeah, the confidence and all that came from my parents, but I really think I was really formed mostly by the education I got through life. My life has been informed by an ongoing education. I think God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk. And you know, the world's a great university if you're willing to learn the lesson. And every time something supposedly bad happens, I don't see it as bad. I see it as an opportunity to learn. Rainbows after storms, you know. And success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. You know, people don't understand that. I mean, they should embrace challenges and pain. People talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech, Martin Luther King's famous speech. He gave that speech 100 times before the March on Washington, in little halls where nobody was paying attention, in churches where kids were going to sleep. And what if he'd given up the 57th time, or the 88th time, or the 99th time? There'd be no Barack Obama. You know, it just wouldn't be. Or there'd be no corporate executives, you know, African Americans running major companies, Africans running major companies. I mean, all of this is part of a long lineage of setting it up and paying it off.
Would there have been a John Hope Bryant?
No, that's why I'm here. Exactly. You just answered the question of why I traveled all this distance and invested this time. There would not be a John Hope Bryant because none of us get here by ourselves. None of us are islands. And quoting Deepak Chopra, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're all interconnected, and we all share this small planet. And so, yes, you've got to do for yourself, but, you know, I cannot divorce myself from those people who believed enough in me to open the door. I had to walk through it, but somebody opened the door for all of us.
What inspired Operation Hope?
Prejudice, my own, indifference, shame, my own. So I grew up in this community. I just told you about that. I told you about my experience with my mom and my dad. Well, the result of that, the knock-on effect of that is that I grew up thinking that was normal, that my experience was normal. And so my friends, when they were not successful or when they weren't achieving or when I saw them lazy, I'd say, you know, go get a job, stop whining, get off of your rear end. It's your fault. And I was merciless on people around me.
Well, more on Inside Out when we return. We continue our conversation with John Hope Bryant. Now, how old were you at this stage?
Well, I mean, I started my first business when I was 10 years of age, the neighborhood candy house, and with a small loan from my mother, $40 US, so I guess 400 Rand, and made $300 a week. So made 3,000 Rand a week approximately selling candy at 10 years of age. Gave me an enormous self-esteem boost. And so I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I was homeless for 6 months of my life when I was 18. I guess we can get to that at some point. So I've had good times and I've had bad times. The long and short of it is when I was 23, 24, 25, I was running a multi-million-dollar business that I had built. And I was just merciless on people who I grew up with. And a friend of mine said to me, not everybody's a John Bryant. And I'm not giving you a compliment, he said. He said, your parents were not rare black parents. Your rare parents were rare parents of any race, because they loved you, they nurtured you, they were positive role models, they encouraged you, they spent time with you. And so you shouldn't blame poverty on the poor. You shouldn't. It's not a child's fault if his mother's on crack and his father's missing in action. Now the child must take responsibility for their life and they must move on from there. But have not sympathy, but have empathy. Empathize with somebody whose life and circumstances are different. They didn't start with you at the same place. And I say, yeah, because when things are going well, you intellectualize, yeah, whatever.